So this might be too little too late, but Kanye West has been quiet lately ever since this right here, which is really not at all a good situation. So this is out of the Fortune um, magazine or Fortune social media where they make reports of different things happening that are current, such as Kanye West keeping quiet after reportedly losing his coveted billionaire status. So here's the money that he lost. This is by a Sophie Meller, and it's recent. It's October 26th, Wednesday. So Kanye West now, who goes by Yee, is what he calls himself. He's staying markedly quiet, um, silent, or markedly silent after self-destructing his partnership with the German sportswear giant Adidas, a move that reportedly left a $1.5 billion dent in his net worth. So Yee's net worth without Adidas is now around 400 million, according to a new report from Forbes. Um, as the market value of Yeezy and Yee's sneaker and apparel business has plummeted after losing its partnership with Gap and Adidas as well. So he first made an appearance on Forbes billionaire list. This was April of 2020 and has prided himself on his self-made billionaire status, so most of which hinged on Yeezy's successful partnership with Adidas. But following the end of their collaboration, after a viral video of Yee circulated on social media taunting Adidas by saying, "I can say anti Semitic things and Adidas can't drop me. Now what? Now what?" His billionaire status evaporated in a matter of minutes. So the Yeezy business alone, of which Yee is the sole proprietor, was once valued at between 3.2 billion to 4.7 billion by UBS Group. This was in 2021, according to Bloomberg. Bank of America estimated in 2019 that Yeezy's future royalties from his collaboration with Adidas would range from one, it looks like 1.75 billion. I may not be saying it correctly. I'm sorry. So, in other words, it's a whole lot of money. And 3 billion, okay? 175 billion to 3 billion. So since Adidas terminated its partnership with Yeezy on October 25th, following repeated anti-Semitic remarks from Yee, the Yeezy brand has little remaining income and a bleak future outlook. So while Yeezy could try to partner with other fashion houses and resume collecting royalties, there may not be any clients willing to work with the toxic Yee brand. So it's not really looking so great right now for this whole situation that occurred. It seems like what I was looking at is there was I'm gonna assume it's a journalist or a columnist. It could be someone that just is reporting on the financial aspect of what has just happened with Kanye West's brand of future endeavors regarding Yee and Adidas. Looked like it was going to be hard for him to bounce back from this whole situation because of what has already taken place. And I think what has catapulted this is that on the 405 freeway, there was a white supremacist group, which I would assume they don't really like blacks, but because Kanye West spouted off the what was what most people had saw on social media as anti-Semitic comments. They agreed with the comments. And so it sent a shockwave through these communities having to do with these brands and what message it sends. Plus, there was also what was made known, there was a history with Adidas in the past having to do with some of this hatred of what has happened. And so it doesn't look good and doesn't sit well for the business to align with someone who's spouting off anti Semitic comments and remarks. They also made mention of other people previous to Kanye West who did similar something like this, and they were able to come back, but not in the same way that they started off. But this columnist that was talking, he was saying he doesn't even think that Kanye West would even be able to do what this other person was able to do. And I'm just gonna put it out there. This other person was white, and they weren't. I assume they may not have been from the Jewish community, but because they said anti-Semitic comments, they were at one time, you know, really popular in their fashion in the fashion world, but now they're more well, sort of behind the scenes. They're not as out front like they used to be, but they're able to take a place in the fashion world, but not as it was before. But from what this columnist was saying, a journalist that is, he was saying that he didn't believe Kanye West was going to even be able to bounce back like that. And so that sounds really bad. This is what I heard, you know. So that's where he's at on this issue right here. I don't even think he'll be able to apologize and it would sit well because he has not said anything. And then it brought out all those hate groups. And they had signs on the 405 and they were spouting off and they were doing their Hitler salute. And that didn't sit well. So it also increases the violence against the Jewish community, which they're already experiencing. And so that's another downer on that whole thing right there. But social media, you know how they used to say back in the days, the streets talk. Well, not only the streets are talking, but social media talks as well. So when you do things like this, it can ruin your career for good. And so I've heard people say, oh, I don't want anybody stopping my bag. But what happens when you stop your own bag? If you get what I'm saying. So, meaning your money. You stop your money flow. What do you do now? So, you got to figure your way out of it. So, the news will likely not sit well with Yee, who reportedly approached Bloomberg and Forbes repeatedly in recent years to be included in the billionaire list. So Yee felt his net worth was undervalued by both publications, and when he first made Forbes' list with an estimated $1 billion fortune in 2020, he reportedly texted the publication to say it's not a billion, adding it's 3.3 billion, since no one at Forbes knows how to count. That's the way he said it. So, lost partnership and lost business. So this goes on to say the death of Yee's empire happened remarkably quickly after the controversial October 3rd YZY show at Paris Fashion Week, where the models walked the runway wearing White Lives Matter t-shirts. And so that's the other part of it, this that didn't sit well as well. So Yee's increasingly vitriolic rants on social media culminated in anti-Semitic remarks, and the rapper and designer was kicked off Instagram and Twitter as well, after saying that he would go DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. So he continued an anti-Semitic attack on Jewish media and Jewish Zionists for allegedly profiting off of Black people in the music industry as well. So he mentioned that. And so I'm not going to put all of my own 2 cents in here to to add to this until the end. I added a little bit in between, but um, I will say this. Let me see. I was gonna say stuff at the end. Okay, I mean this is just so crazy the way this is going. So since then, much of the business world has abandoned Ye. Banking giant J.P. Morgan Chase, French fashion house Balenciaga, talent agency CAA, fashion kingpin Anna Wintour, to name a few, have all cut ties with Ye. So while Adidas was slow to drop Ye, it eventually gave in to the calls, made a statement on. Um, they made a statement on. I might have passed it up. I'm also looking at this. Like it's this is just so wow, it's so abrupt. Okay, so they made a statement on the 25th of October saying that the company does not tolerate anti-Semitism and any other sort of hate speech. And Yee's recent comments and actions have been unacceptable, hateful, and dangerous. Okay, so it concluded that after a thorough review, the company has taken the decision to terminate the partnership with Yee immediately and end the production of Yeezy's branded products. So, and to stop all payments to Yee and his companies as well. So, this is pretty serious, you guys. Just listen to all of this. It's like it just totally just, the money flow just cut off completely. Boom. Just like that. Just from looking at this small paragraph right here, so much is going on right away. Now I'm playing devil's advocate, and I know some people are not going to like this, but what I do know is that you notice like right now, and I know you're going to say, well, what does this have to do with this right here? But I feel like it all kind of connects somehow. Somehow this all kind of connects. And I'm not saying that one evil is better than the other or lesser than the other, because it's all bad, is what I'm saying. But what I do notice, is that, okay, so I've mentioned recently that it seems like a lot of the black artists and entertainers, when there's any controversy or anything that happens, like from Will Smith to different rap artists and different song artists, different groups, when any time something not good happens, like this situation here with Kanye West and what he's going through, um, you notice that when black people do anything that is perceived to be wrong or is a mistake or something against some other group, I mean, the fall is so hard. Even if it's by mistake, even if it's something that maybe they didn't intend to go this way, but once it hits social media, once it hits the streets, once it gets to that phone call, that phone call that can stop all payments to that individual. You know, they might be living good, they might have a nice home, nice cars, they might be doing well, they're thriving in their business or their celebrity status, and just that one incident is a it's the deal breaker, and everything ends completely. And you notice it ends abrupt, and it's either extremely hard for that person, if they're of color, to bounce back from that. And when you stop your own money flow and you start spouting off things, you better have a real good support system in place, and you better have real good explanations as to why you went the route that you went. and then be prepared that you may not get the status or the reach the level of status that you once had. So you have to keep all of that in mind. And I feel like people sometimes should think before they do things, but a lot of times maybe they have taken on maybe other feelings and they want to express who they really are, however that may be. But you have to always know that other people may not perceive it the same way maybe you would assume they would. So going on with this article, it's saying that all stop all payments to Yee and his companies. When you hear that, that is in effect now. So it's saying Adidas is going to stop the Adidas Yeezy business with immediate effect. And so let me read this again if you get the gist of how serious this is. While Adidas was slow to drop Yee, it eventually gave into the calls. So there were calls of people and maybe famous people, other famous people that didn't agree with what Kanye West was saying. They could have been a part of the Jewish community as well. And so when they might be heavy hitters. So this leads me, I think this is the best time to lead into this. You notice that I do notice this, and I'm not trying to say this to be mean or anything, but what I have noticed is that with regard to the Jewish community, um, what I've observed, and I'm not saying that different groups don't have their issues. Here in LA, in California, I know that there is a large presence of the Jewish community. And from what I've seen in that community, like in the Fairfax district, I'm just going to use that as a great example because what I usually see, they have the Jewish temples, and when you see the people of that community, and it could be different people, I'm just going to say this, and I don't want to offend anybody. I hope it doesn't offend anybody, and I'm not trying to add to insult to injury, but what I've seen is, from what I've observed, is I feel like the community has a close knit. Is it safe to say that a close knit community? And they're protective of one another, and also the money that they have in investments and maybe businesses and what have you. And that could be maybe just the culture of the community. Um, and I know other groups have wanted to have a similar type of thing where they make money for people that are in their community so that their community can thrive and that they can carry on culturally and preserve the culture. And I feel like, is it safe to say that's what the Jewish community is like? And what I've seen in the Fairfax district, this is what I've seen. Material wise, it looks like financially, some of the people that I've seen in the Jewish community don't look poor. They look like they are well taken care of. And I believe it's within the community, or money wise, like nice houses, nice cars, nice schools. Um, this is what I've seen, and it seems like financially they're not really. You don't really hear a whole lot about them hurting financially. And now, when they mention about the money having to do with the music industry, there was a time, and I'm trying to say this in the nicest way possible that it doesn't offend anyone, that when the rap music was big in the 80s, the late 70s, the early 80s and 80s, 90s, early 2000s, some of the artists, this is what I've heard, and I'm saying this in the nicest way, there's no other way to say this, that a lot of it was owned by Jewish record producers and companies. Mainly, they profited from those artists, and a lot of those artists, I guess, if they weren't financially literate, maybe the contracts they signed weren't legitimately um, fair. And so a lot of those artists, which were black artists, um, lost a lot of money. Our money was stolen from them. Let's to put it that way. And the money that they could have acquired had they had assigned contracts that were legitimately fair, they would have had a little more money to live off of, or to maintain themselves, or to be relevant in the world as it is today, without you hearing a lot of the tragedies that you hear. The person didn't have an apartment to live in, or they didn't have any food to eat. They lost a lot of money. All they was a rap artist with a rap name, and they were big back in the 80s, and then they lost everything. And here you got these other people in the background. They're not the ones doing the music, or they're not the name. They're just the company behind that artist. And they're living good. They have nice cars and nice businesses and nice, they taking care of their family, and none of that money has 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 been transferred to the artists that work hard to help to acquire that money. And so these people are living good behind the scenes, and you don't see or hear of them, and they're quiet. And these artists, you hear and see about them, but they're not living that well, and their health is declined, or they've lost a significant amount of money, or they were young when they started out and they didn't know what contracts they were signing, and so they made big mistakes. They didn't have lawyers to look at the fine print of the contracts to say, if you sign this record company is going to get most of your profits from the record sales that you earn. You won't be getting it. You might get a car out of it. You might get an apartment, but an apartment is not building equity and putting money in your pocket. You're putting money into the landlord's pocket. And so there's a lot of things that people are not really open to see, because as long as it's not happening to people of your community and background, it doesn't matter. You get what I'm saying? I hope this sheds a little bit of light, but that doesn't excuse the fact that you would hold all this animosity and pent up anger in, and you blurt out all of this anger with no direction and no remorse, no backing, no support, nothing else behind it except angry words. And we've heard Kanye say things not even just about the Jewish community, but he said things even about the black community, which he should be a part of, you would assume. And so it just seems really crazy to me that all of this is happening, but not so crazy at the same time. You get what I'm saying? It's weird, but then it's not so. It's like, okay, yeah, I kind of had it coming, you know. We've seen him come out and say things like this before, or crazy stuff, but now this is, I guess, when people say there's a deal breaker or you're at the last straw, well, this is his last straw. And I guess people have kind of dealt with him for as long as they could. And then, you're going to say something that is eventually going to end it all, and you're going to be done, finished. And in the black community, when it seems like when people rise to a certain status, they feel like they can't be touched, but we've seen time and time again, you can be touched. And so this is pretty much proving that he was touched, more than touched. And so how you hurt somebody, even worse than, because if somebody hurts you, they punch you, you can heal from stuff like that. I know that's a crazy way of explaining it, but when you have somebody mess with your money, and then they just cut that lifeline is cut, it's done, And so if you have these fancy cars and these fancy houses, and you owed X amount of dollars, and you weren't due through with the payments, it wasn't paid off, and that was your money source, it is done. You're about to downsize, you're about to get a smaller house, or you're about to change, you got to change up your plan or something. And that's what this is looking like. And it's not only looking like that, it looks like you might end up in court. You might end up in court about this because you don't know whose feathers have been rubbed the wrong way when you say certain things. But you got to have an explanation to back you up. And with this, it seems like this is the one final straw. Like when you start saying things and just blurting it out at people with no direction, of course, and it just comes out as angry words. Um, it What I said earlier doesn't excuse the fact of what he did, but I just wanted to mention that to those of you that I don't know if you're just learning of this, but there was a time when there were music artists who most of their production companies and their record companies and labels were owned by Jewish figureheads in the background, and they were the ones that were pocketing the money. And so there was a lot of anger and animosity because, if that's your way of coming up in the world, if it isn't for black people, it was sports, it was music, and it was some type of, skills in acting. If you didn't have that, it was music and sports. And that's how you went to college, sports. Or you had to really be somebody that's savant, somebody that study your ass off, or you have like some skills in academics that can get you a full ride scholarship. Not too many people can do that. And then you have a lot of great talent out there who don't get drafted and don't get picked for the NFL or the NBA and all these different things like that. You might have a lot of sports abilities. You might have a lot of singers out there, a lot of rappers, but everybody's not going to get picked, right? But you always have those talented few that somehow they are able to wiggle their way to the top. And he was one, of course. And now look what has happened. But notice that once they fall, they'll fall as you rise, as you as you shall acquire so much wealth, you can lose it just that fast in a matter of seconds. And it seems like with the black people that get to the top, it seems like they wipe everything. You see what they did to Cosby, what happened to him. They took his star off the pavement, took that bad boy out of there. Any merits he had, they just like, let's take this away, let's take that away. They making a point showing you that we not only run this country, we run your money and your status. You wouldn't get it if we didn't let you have it. That's basically what they're saying. And so you gotta watch what you say, and you gotta watch what you do and who you're doing it to. And then you gotta, if you're having a nervous breakdown or if you have mental issues, you need to get some help, right? But then too, you also have to realize that you notice that every time something happens in Hollywood, you notice somehow when it's this community, the black community, they get dropped like a bad habit, like boom, it's done, and then to try to come back, either you can't come back, you won't come back, or when you come back, they don't really see your face. You're a memory. Oh, remember that he's working on this project, but you know you're in Unsung. They have a video about you, your rise to fame and your fall from glory, that kind of stuff. And so this is what I've seen time and time again. And I notice somebody behind the scenes, these individuals who have deep pockets, bigger than even Kanye ever would be, can control your money and whether you get it or whether you keep it or whether you continue it or not, and your business ventures. So you should wonder, as black community and anyone else that is outside of this shadowy group here, behind the scenes that controls all of this. Who are they that can stop your bag just like that? That's the question. That is the question. I noticed that. And so you notice, like right now in LA on Hill Street in the court building, they have Weinstein. He's doing the trial, and I don't know if it's done or not yet, if he's still going this week. But also, you notice how R. Kelly, horrible what happened, but you notice how I don't think he's coming back. He won't come back. You notice he's gonna stay where he's at unless some freak situation happens like what happened to Cosby, where he's let out. But I heard recently that he wants to tell on everybody in the music industry, even the black folks that have done stuff behind the scenes, shady black people that have done things that have to do with, maybe money, or maybe, having sex with underage uh, people. And so, when people are at their worst, sometimes they'll sing like a songbird. And I feel like that's what happened with the other guy who they said he had pedophile island. I'm thinking of him. He's I believe, I'm assuming he's Jewish, but he was real powerful. He was able to go to a university and teach, and it was said he didn't even have any degrees. How do you do that? But you had to do that with a phone call, and it's who you know. And for him to reach that status, and for so many years to get away with what he was doing, and then on top of that, to be able to own an island, you gotta be, I mean, to have that. But he had other rich, wealthy figureheads that were paying him to do what he was doing. So he wasn't alone in it. And notice they claimed that he committed suicide, which, I'll be honest with you, I don't believe that he committed suicide. I believe that someone murdered him because they didn't want him to tell on the rest of the people who were participating in the trafficking of young girls and boys. And I believe it was Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein, and they said he had a pedophile island, and it's hitting the market for $125 million. And so he had two private islands, commonly referred to as pedophile island, due to the allegations of sexually abused girls, and as I believe they were like teenager age. So I'm reading this according to, I know you're saying, well, what does this have to do? Notice these people, they're so powerful. And for how long was he able to get away with this? And so now you have this. You notice these people that are in the background. Who are they that they can stop your money? And I'm just gonna say this, and I'm not trying to be mean here, but I feel like there's a powerful support of the Jewish community, and they are not broke. They're not they're not poor. They're not just only wealthy. They are shitting money. They are extreme wealth. And these people they run some of these companies, if not maybe more than what I'm saying. And they have the power to shut you down. And I believe this. And so I think this is what Kanye West has done. Because you notice the pictures that Oprah was taking with Weinstein. Even though he's going to court, Weinstein is the other guy that he got caught for sexual. In all those years, I mean, I don't know, but he's not incarcerated. I haven't seen them throw him in prison yet. And I don't know if he went to jail. Maybe he went to jail. His stay wasn't very long, not as long as R. Kelly's. And is it safe to say that Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, those names, they sound Jewish? Those are Jewish men, and they were powerful to some degree. They might not have been doing the right things, but they still had some support. Maybe not even some, maybe more than what we think. And so I really do believe that Jeffrey was murdered because they didn't want him to come out and say all of the famous people and politicians that were coming to his quote unquote pedophile island. Okay. And the other thing is that what looks bad with Kanye West here, he's saying like all this blatant stuff, but he's not, it's just like angry words coming out. And so your door was opened because some of these people that open your door, if not most of them, they're from the very community that you're saying all these things about. And so if it's against them, then boom, your bag is stopped. And so I believe that's what's going on. And so, and if you look at the history, notice the history behind Adidas. Now, they said there's a history behind Adidas. Is it safe to assume, I'd have to read about this, that Adidas might have participated in somewhat in a negative part of history of the Holocaust situation? Now, I would have to read about this. Anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the calls that they were getting was telling them, look, if you don't do something about this, we are going to boycott your company. And whoever's doing that, they are powerful. Do you hear me? In the world of money. And so whoever these people are, you don't see them, but you can feel them. And they can touch your wallet, touch it where it hurts, and they touch you with the money. Your money stop. How you gonna feed? How you gonna pay for your yacht, and your boat, and your cars, and your house? And how you gonna eat? Your bag is done. So that is what he's dealing with. So Adidas will also absorb a hit. Adidas is getting a hit to earnings to up to $250 million, $247 million this year. So they're even hitting Adidas. So whoever's behind the scenes, they're so big that they're even gonna hit the company in the pocket. Just for being slow to cancel Kanye West. So that should tell you right there who you're messing with. You gotta know who you're messing with. You see what I'm saying? That's the effect of all of this. And so these people ain't playing. So while also erasing the estimated 10% of its current sales, that came from Yeezy's products, according to the Morningstar analyst David Schwartz. Okay, so this is what you got people sitting at the table talking about. What else can we stop? What else can what will make him realize that he has to not only come out with a public apology, but he must know that the status that he once had, it is done. It is done. And so that's what happens when you mess with money. That's what happens when you mess with money. And is it really worth it? Now, looking from the other side, coming out on stage with White Lives Matter shirts, then you have on the 405 well-known white supremacist group that don't like black people. And here you are, you're supposed to be black, but you're saying things that seem like you don't even know that you're black and that they don't even really like you. But you're saying all of this stuff and you supporting their hatred. That just doesn't make sense to me. What do you think? I mean, I don't think it makes sense. So Yee has since shrugged off Gap and Balenciaga, dropping him as clients. So when asked about Balenciaga cutting ties with Yeezy after his anti-Semitic rants, Yee told reporters, I ain't losing no money and they never paid me nothing. Okay, so that's the way he put it. So what does it say up here? Before the controversy, Yeezy also was making a solid income from its partnership with the Gap, a deal that was optimistically expected to bring in about 1 billion a year, according to an analysis from Wells Fargo. So once Gap and Yeezy got Balenciaga on board to collaborate with Yeezy's Gap, expectations, the earning grew even greater until Yee terminated the partnership with Gap, claiming that he wasn't given enough control over the items that were sold in the store and online. You know why? Because you weren't given enough control because they're the ones in control of things, not you. And so that's the problem. And so we in the black communities, I gotta remember, whose money is this? Whose money is this? Think about it. I mean, you saying you earn all of this stuff, but who's the one paying you the money in the background? That's the part some people, I don't think they realize, that it's this shadow group. And I mean, they're heavy hitters and they have a lot of money. They have the power to say yay and nay, yes or no. Or we're stopping that bag right here. We're stopping this bag. We stopping that. You cannot do that. Just like some years ago, there was this guy saying he was going to open up a school. And he was trying to go the route of similar. But he was saying, oh, it's just going to be an all black school for black boys and black girls. And we're not going to have any white people intervene. I'm like, that's going to be hard to do when you're in a country where the people that are supposed to open up schools, you're going to have a lot of different input of different personalities and different entities, different places. The fire department, they have to clear the school. So there's going to be some white people in there. Then you're going to have to go through maybe licensing. There's going to be white people in there. Then you're going to have to go through, maybe permits. There's going to be white people in there. So this is impossible. You're not going to be able to do that. So I already knew that this person was just selling black people who were on board with this anti, let's just keep it all black, keeping it, and he was getting money from a group of black people who were naive, and they found out that he was a phony. This guy was a total phony. He was doing this. He even had a GoFundMe page. So you gotta know who you're dealing with. I mean, people will say stuff, but boy, I'm telling you, when it has to do with our group of people, black people, like if you rise to the occasion, you get high up on the pedestal or high up on the status, and I mean, so you got to maintain that with dignity, and then you got to be careful about what you say. One good advice is don't say nothing. Do not say any ill word about anyone, because it could cost you a lot. It could cost you your whole career. So Yee has since said he has since shrugged it off, but now the remainder of Yee's wealth is left in his large real estate portfolio now, his music catalog, his 5% stake in ex-wife Kim Kardashian, shapewear firm Skims, and around 122 million in cash and stocks. Okay, so this story was originally featured on Fortune.com. So this is like a money magazine where they talk about money and people who are big up high up on the ladder, or at least was. That's how this is going. So, what I'm saying here is, I don't have anything against, personally against the Jewish community. Let me say that, for those of you that heard me say what I said earlier, but there was a time, and I don't know if it's still going on. I'll just be honest with you. I believe, is Clive Davis Jewish? I'm not sure. I'm just asking. There was even talk about him controlling Whitney's money. That she was rich on stage, but an asset, she was, in terms of her assets, she wasn't as rich. And then too, people say stuff about her activities that she was involved in with the drug abuse and whatnot, what have you. But then I wonder, with all of that going on, who behind the scenes knew that she was like that? Was somebody there talking to her, telling her, hey, why don't you like chill on the drugs, just like get some help, we can help you. You notice that you hear those horrible stories, and it's like, who's there to support you in all of that? And then who's behind the scenes ready to take all of your money, whatever's left of whatever you have earned, you know? And these big companies that are behind the scene, you never see those people. You never see those people. Everybody, they go to these little awards, they're like, oh, look at the actor, look at that, look at the song artist, they're all congratulating, giving them the accolades. But who's the people that are behind, producers, the record companies? Who are those people? How do they live? And from what I'm hearing is some of them live, it depends. But, and not the small companies, but the bigger ones, the gargantuan companies, seem to live good. And they're behind the scenes. And then you got some people, they're all about the money. They don't care what nationality, where you from. You could be from the same group nationality as them. All they think about is dollar signs. If you sink or swim, hey, it's entirely up to you. But they're gonna always swim. They're always gonna be the shark. They're always gonna be the werewolf in the deal. They're always gonna stay with deep pockets. And if you lose, then you lose by yourself. And they're not gonna give you no safety net. And so sometimes they don't even tell you, or they're sneaky. They're a con artist, or they know how to tell you stuff to make your contract sound like you're going to get a whole bunch of money. And then you sign your name on that, you can't even take them to court, because they can go to court and be like, well, he signed this here, and this says this is my money. And so you can't do nothing to fight against it, unless a whole lot of other people come forward and then they complain that they had went through the same thing. But a lot of people don't do that because they're embarrassed, or that maybe that ship has sailed. It's been so long since it happened. They figured, well, they already got my money. It's gone. It's gone. It's a done deal. But stuff like this, people just coming out randomly saying hateful slurs and comments, and then they say stuff about people of their own background, and they turn about the slavery was just a choice, and all this kind of stuff. And then you turn around and then you say something in regard to what happened to black people, and then you turn around and wear a White Lives Matter shirt. I don't quite understand the whole logistics of all of that. The only thing I could say is with the music industry, there has been a lot of people that have been taken for granted, and they have had money stolen from them. That I would say that there's some truth in that. But too, when you got young people who are they're real impressionable, and they have a lot of talent, and maybe they don't have a lot of financial literacy, or they don't have a lot of support, or they don't have the money to hire big lawyers to read the contracts for them. So I mean, you got all these fancy smashy Hollywood people, and so they're doing all this stuff behind the scenes, and you never really hear about it. You never hear about what happened to them. They're living big, and then all these artists, all these entertainers, there's oh, he did such and such, but look what happened. He lost everything, you know, and there was no safety net. Or you hear about people, you thought they were living good, and they don't even have an apartment to stay in. They house hopping, couch surfing or something. And it ain't something that they do by choice. It's something that they're forced to do because they don't have no other means of shelter. They're homeless, stuff like that. And so I'm just keeping it real, y'all. I'm telling you, there's a lot of shady characters out there. But this was uncalled for. I mean, he should think about what he's saying and what he's doing before he acts on those feelings. If there's some social issues, mental issues, or something going on, you need to seek help for it. But now look what it's done. It's cost you $1 billion lifestyle. But I don't know. Maybe he'll have support of other people. Maybe he'll find other avenues. Maybe he got some money stashed away in case he gets dropped. Because those was pretty bold statements he was making. It almost seemed like he wasn't afraid for this to happen, and he should have known this was coming. But he's quiet. Maybe this is his way to bounce back with another group of people. I don't know, but I'm not a person that supports the things that he said. I don't think that the character of what he did, was justified at all. This was a really bad move, but that's my opinion. I don't know how you guys feel about it. It's just sad. And then too, you got other people. Like I've mentioned in another video. Like here, you got. I don't know. I don't know if you know. Puff Daddy. First it was Puffy Combs. Then it was Puff Daddy. Then it was Puffy. I've never heard anything about him living bad. But most of the artists, some of the people that he's worked with, I don't know. Some of them might be all right, but a lot of them I hear seem like they're not doing as well as he is. It just seem, I'm assuming so. It doesn't seem like they're doing as well as he is. And it's not to say that people of your own background don't do wrong, dirty to you. You got somebody from the same. They just know how to they get high up. They know how to own their own record company, and they know how to write up contracts, and then they got all your money, or they bully you out of your money, and they want you to do all this music, and you're the one that's making the money, and they sitting back behind the scene living in nice homes and driving nice cars, and like that whole thing with Suge Knight. you know I mean, it could happen with people of your own group, but I will say that it was a time that I was hearing that a lot of those companies was white owned music companies, and that they was taking a lot of money. Some of them was doing some dirty stuff to black people, taking their money. They knew they didn't know how to. They didn't have no money for no lawyer. They didn't have no financial literacy. They didn't know that they was signing a contract that they could take to court and find out that they don't really own anything. They don't own the rights to their own music. So, when you have people doing dirty stuff like that out there, you got to look at everybody. But anyway, having said this, I don't know how he gonna bounce back from this. I don't think you can say there ain't no sorry in the world that can change all of what has happened. When you're talking about billions and millions, and they ready to cut off your billions, and that's probably why he quiet.